So if you were to give advice for anybody that may want to become an art historian today, what kind of tips might you give them?
When I studied, there was still no internet, so no research. What I really would suggest, because there are so many different roles becoming an art historian, do a lot of work in museums, voluntary work or internships.
Yeah.
Then you find out much more, especially as a voluntary guide, for example.
And are those kinds of opportunities available at a lot of different museums?
Yeah, I think, it's called visitor experience assistants. They are my lovely colleagues. If you come inside a museum, so they ask you where you want to go or which is the way to this and this exhibition. And so that would be maybe a good idea. You can look it up at the museum's websites. They all have those really wonderful colleagues. They make your experience in a museum really good. So
The friendly face sitting on the chair.
Absolutely. And they all have a double life. So maybe they're musicians or they study art history. And so,
It's a great way to kind of get into the museum and start looking around. Because obviously, so the art world is kind of a hard industry to get into, but that seems like quite an accessible role to start off at and see if you actually like it.
Yeah. Also, online research nowadays is really so good. You can figure out whatever and do it really while you are studying, asking your
own
professors.
separate study.
Yeah. Then also while you're studying, you figure out what you like best. I like to give wisdom to people who come to the tours.
You like to tell stories to people.
To tell stories, and I want them to get out of the museum and maybe to know 10 new things or to be excited about something they really did not like before or they didn't understand, or maybe at least to tell them, be critical and maybe get home and read more. Do not have like always the need to feel I like something, I don't like it. I mean, sometimes I don't even, with a lot of works of Hilma af Klint, the works done in 1907, which are maybe now in Western art history, are the first abstract paintings. We know now it can change any time.
That we're aware of.
Yeah, but others I thought, I don't...
Like, they're okay.
But I love the idea behind it.
Yeah.
And that is maybe more the point. The thoughts behind and that make me behave maybe in a different way.
And it sounds like you like to champion the artist with something that someone may have just like looked at and thought, oh, it looks cool or it doesn't, whatever. You're helping them scratch that surface, kind of what I was talking about earlier, so that they can be exposed to this wonderful, like magical story of all the good stuff. What is a kind of typical thing that an art historian might do on a day-to-day for someone that might want to do this one day?
I mean,
it varies, I assume.
Yeah, it varies. Most of the time, I would say we read a lot. We read and read and read. And because we have to prepare, if I give a tour about a special exhibition, you read through the catalog, you go to the library, you want to accumulate as much wisdom as you can. And then, you prepare your talks. I also do a lot of like office talks or lectures. So you have to create the PowerPoints. I mean, the work I love the most, if I prepared a show or like also a tour through the permanent collection, to have people around me. So it's like 1 hour, 90 minutes, and you can see, wow, sometimes they are puzzled. And then afterwards, it makes that click, and their eyes is almost like, wow, they look differently.
That's something that I think is so kind of rock star about what art historians do, is they provide context.
Exactly.
So that you can digest it. That's something that I find really important, and I strive to do a lot with the content that I make, is to provide context for people so they never feel alienated from understanding art. And that's what's so cool about what art historians do, is they try and condense it into this little sheet that goes next to a painting so that you can really feel like you're there and like you kind of get it. If that makes sense.
No, and that is also, I think, the really great thing about being an art historian. Sometimes you have like 20 people. It's almost like a performance. And what I always see, a lot of people, they are a bit like, if they stand maybe at Tate Modern in front of the urinal of Marcel Duchamp from 1917. It's a pissoir. It's turned upside down and it changed so much. And people thought, why? I mean, he not even made it. He thought about it. And that was really the beginning of...
Well, did he make it, though? In the episode that I've just recorded before this one, that was my first discovery of the questioning of who actually made the fountain. Remember, we spoke about that the other day as well. What was the woman's name again?
Von Arnsberg.
Okay, everybody, that is how you actually say it. Don't listen to me and the other one. That's quite caught my attention. And even that just goes to show you about what kind of like context things provide. Like, I literally had no idea.
Museums are also great places to learn a lot, but also to unlearn a lot. Because I wrote my thesis about also Vasily Kandinsky, and you learn, okay, one of the first abstract paintings, 1911. Now I had to erase that because Hilma af Klint just came out of the ether.
Yeah, because she was doing that forever ago.
Yeah, much earlier. And then you read up how everything is connected also to theosophy or anthroposophy. And that is exactly art historians. We are historians. We are always connecting the art to what is going on at a special moment. You can see that in painting, especially also with Philip Gaston. You would think it's like 3 different artists. If you see his work with no context, you would never think about the early works, so figurative, and then the last works. You see people, especially in front of the urinal, and then they get it. Like especially maybe people who like figuration and so on. I think, okay, that is not art. And then they get the point. The ideas or concepts, they're equally important than the skills.
Yes.
Because in art, we always think, okay, if somebody can do something we can't do, that is great art.
Yeah, like the value is put on the unachievable kind of.
Yeah, of course. If you look at Vermeer and those brushstrokes that you can see every little hair and so on. Yeah, urinal, to turn something upside down and say that's a fountain at the first glance is maybe not so exciting. But if you drive back, because it's always like you have to almost like sit in a time machine if you are in a museum.
Yeah.
Over 100 years ago, I mean, that was like outrageous.
Exactly. And I think that sometimes seeing so much history in one place, it's hard to almost like separate the time and really fathom it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Before I was more conscious, I guess you could say, of the way that I looked at paintings and sculpture and art, because I was going into a museum thinking, okay, I'm aware of this artist and I want to know more. But when I was going in more blindly, I don't think I was as deep about it as I am now, for sure. You don't have to be, but I just wasn't at the time. I just wanted to go find some cool stuff to look at. And I think that sometimes I would miss a little bit of that because I wasn't aware, maybe. I don't know. It didn't click until one day, like it just did. And that's what I found really interesting, is that it's almost like once you start to scratch that little surface, it's like Pandora's box. All this stuff just comes and floods you. Yeah. And then you got to pick up all the pieces because you don't want to forget anything, because it's just so cool.
And maybe it happened to you as well, that you see the works of art in a completely new way. Because a lot of people, they come inside the museum and say, okay, I like it, I do not like it, I like it. And that's not the point. I mean, artists, they want to poke you a bit. They want to disturb you. And once you get that you are right, you do not need to like it. And I feel more and more that I like the art, or I find the art that disturbs me the most, I find the most interesting. If it does something to my thoughts, to my thinking. Yeah. I work at the Frieze Masters every year for a week, and I often see works of art, and you can't be into everything and know everything. And the more I read, it becomes so much more exciting. And then, like with people.
It's like building an appreciation for it rather than just like saying it looks pretty. Yeah. Because there's a lot of art that doesn't look pretty, and there's a lot of art that I love, and there's a lot of art that I don't, and that's like, also could not be more normal to not to like and not like things. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But it's more like with art, if you like the idea behind. I also do talks, what can business learn from art? Like this crazy rebel thinking and doing things in a completely different way. There was the Gucci advertisement a couple of years ago, and it was a smile. And the model, I think she was a punk singer, and she had the most crooked teeth you ever saw. And you looked twice because you thought, wow, that is so different. It's not like
It made you look at it.
Absolutely. That's the power of art.